Now, if you guys haven't already, I want to make sure you have subscribed to the channel. Scroll on down, hit that big red subscribe button, and then let me know if you have. Type SUB, aka sub, in case you have subscribed to the channel. It's a real easy way to let me know that you are a loyal watcher here on Chat Sports. And now we're going to keep going with our Q&A, and if you want your questions on screen, all you got to do, use that hashtag NBA or send us your super chats. Appreciate all you guys interacting with us in the live chat and in the comment section. Let's go to Johnny Goodman. Should the Timberwolves trade for John Collins? Here's the only way this happens. You got to give up the first pick. You got to give up a guy like Culver. And you got to give up one more young player like a guy like Josh Okogie. And at that point, it's like, is it worth it? Because the Hawks love Collins. They love John Collins alongside Trae Young. And I think he is better. Collins is better than anything you're going to get at number one. So I think the Hawks say no, but I do think the Timberwolves should at least make the call and try to make it happen. Levante Rogers coming in with the question, do the Bulls trade their pick if Deni Avdija is not there? No. What you do then is you draft the other wing that I really like, Isaac Okoro, out of Auburn, and he becomes a defensive option for the Bulls at number 4. So, no, I don't think you should trade the pick unless you get a dynamite offer somewhere else in the NBA draft or somewhere else on the open market. Just not going to be able to happen. I love Isaac Okoro, and I love Deni Avdija. If you can get a solid wing with the Chicago Bulls alongside Levine and Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. and Kobe White, you do it. And Isaac Okoro and Deni Avdija are those really solid wings there. Let's go to Skirmish 1, says Knicks trade up into the draft to the top 3. I mean, you have the 7th overall pick. You have Kevin Knox. You have a guy like Frank Ntilikina. You have Dennis Smith Jr. You have a lot of trade chips, but it's either Charlotte, Minnesota, or Golden State. The only team that I think would trade out of the top 3 is Golden State. So if they can do it, yeah, they absolutely should. But do I think they're going to be able to? Maybe not. I don't think they have the firepower or exactly what the Golden State Warriors are looking for. Let's go to Brandon Snyder. It says, where will the Houston Rockets be in the Western Conference next year? Well, you got James Harden. You got Russell Westbrook. You got Robert Covington. You got some solid pieces, but I think this team's going to fall to 6, maybe the 7th seed. I think this could be a team that blows it up in the middle of the year. I think they will underperform. I just don't think they're going to be that good again next year. So I say 6, 7, potentially number 8. Let's go to Special K. Do you think the Suns trade Booker to the Timberwolves for the number 1 pick? I think the Timberwolves would. I don't think the Suns would. The number 1 pick is not worth Devin Booker. Now, if you can get a guy like Jarrett Culver and, again, Josh Okogie and somebody else, sure, maybe. But I don't think the Timberwolves have what it takes to get a guy that is really a franchise player in Devin Booker. And the number 1 pick is just not worth it. Johnny Goodman, another good question here, says, who's the big names do you think will ask for a trade this upcoming season? I think one guy we're going to see in the offseason get moved is Aaron Gordon of the Orlando Magic. I think Victor Oladipo of the Indiana Pacers is another good name, another big-name trade candidate that we could see get moved. Other than that, I mean, obviously Chris Paul will make some sense, but we just kind of have to see how the rest of the season plays out. Maybe Russell Westbrook next year, maybe James Harden next year, maybe Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, one of those guys. But nobody crazy comes to mind right off the bat, but those are some of the names that I have in mind. Let's go to Sports Fan All Day. Says, will the Lakers be able to re-sign Anthony Davis? Yeah. I mean, listen, it's going to be their number 1 priority, no matter what. He's going to get a max deal from someone. I think that team is going to be the Los Angeles Lakers, because why would they not pay him? He's been a first-team All-NBA player. He should have won Defensive Player of the Year. And if he leaves L.A., in all honesty, I think he's just crazy. I think he will be a Laker next season. If you want to rep the Lakers next season or any of your favorite teams or favorite players, you can go to chatsports.com/NBA jerseys and get your jerseys that are shipping for free for a limited time only over at Fanatics. And if one of your favorite players does switch teams, like Kevin Durant is bound to do once again as he switches teams almost every other 3 years, you can get jersey insurance thanks to Fanatics and get a replacement jersey. So go to chatsports.com/NBA jerseys, pick up your jersey, get it shipped to your house for free today. Let's go to Marcus with a picture of Anthony Davis in a New Orleans Pelicans jersey. That's a sad sight. Should my Pelicans trade Drew for the number 2 pick and get LaMelo Ball? You know, I think I brought this up on a show the other day of actually LaMelo Ball going to the Pelicans for Lonzo Ball. I don't remember how I got to that point, but I did somehow. Oh, it was for Drew Holiday. Should they do it? I'm going to say yes. I think they should do it. I think you should get LaMelo Ball and Lonzo Ball in the same backcourt, go younger, get Jrue Holiday off the team, put him on the Warriors, and all of a sudden you've got the Chino Hills backcourt of LaMelo and Lonzo Ball back in New Orleans. Now, do I think the Warriors will do it? Maybe. Well, actually, you know what? Why wouldn't they, right? Why wouldn't they trade for Jrue Holiday? He's better than what you're going to get at number 2. Jrue Holiday right now is better than LaMelo Ball. Let's get that clear. But I love the idea of LaMelo and Lonzo in the same backcourt. Okay, now that I'm looking at this, is that Anthony Davis? Yeah, it is. Okay, I thought it was LaMelo Ball already photoshopped into a New Orleans jersey. I thought he had already bought into the entire idea. So that's from Marcus there. Let's go to Skirmish 1. It says, Dame to the Knicks. How? I mean, I love the idea. I love the big brain thoughts here of getting a star to the New York Knicks by trade because nobody will come there in free agency. But how in the world are you going to make it happen? You'd have to give up at least R.J. Barrett and the number 7 overall pick, which is obviously worth it because that's, Dame's way better than either of those guys. But I just don't think they have anything that Portland is very interested in outside of Mitchell Robinson, R.J. Barrett, and the 7th pick. And at that point, the Knicks are probably double, looking back on it like, do I really want to do that? Now, if there is a big NBA trade, which there is bound to be something big this offseason, we're going to have it live on NBA Now and on Chat Sports, but only if we get enough likes on this video. We need to hit at least 100 by the end of this Q&A. I think we could do that pretty easily. All you got to do is scroll down, hit that big thumb, and just turn it into a blue thumb. It's gray right now. You can turn it blue by simply clicking it and giving this video a like. Let's go to Hachetta11 says, what do you think about this trade for both sides? All right, time to turn on Jimmy's trade machine in my head so I can really get this one pumping. Kings trade Buddy Hield, Harrison Barnes, Marvin Bagley, 12th pick for Al Horford and Joel Embiid. Oh, man. I still think Philly says no, right? I mean, the 12th pick isn't that valuable. Buddy Hield is great. Marvin Bagley has a long way to go. And Harrison Barnes, I mean, that's basically just having like a poor man's version of Tobias Harris. The Kings, yeah, sure, absolutely. You say yes, you have a guy to build around in Joel Embiid and De'Aaron Fox. But I think the Philadelphia 76ers say no in that scenario. But I do like the idea. Keep coming with your trade ideas. Hashtag NBA from Jello Smooth says NYK is hot to trot for Melo reportedly. What is the most realistic trade for the number 2 and number 8 swap considering lowered value of the LaMelo Ball. I thought we were talking about Carmelo Anthony back to New York. Okay, this one makes a little bit more sense now. So, listen, the Knicks have that number 8 overall pick. They can get up to number 2. Again, I don't think they have what it takes to get there unless they want to give up a guy like Kevin Knox, maybe a Mitchell Robinson to go along with that number 8 pick to be able to get up to number 2. But if they can do it, if they can find a way to get to number 2 and get LaMelo, they should absolutely do it because they need that star point guard to build around. It's not Elfrid Payton. It's not Frank Ntilikina. It's definitely not Dennis Smith Jr. If you can get LaMelo, you do everything you can. I'm just not sure how they're going to actually be able to pull that off. Let's go to Ant Boykin says, how can the Lakers trade to get Chris Paul not if he wants to play. Ant Boykin says he wants to play with LeBron James. So it is a certified fact. Ant has sources, I think. How can they do it? Let's think. Kuzma for sure. Danny Green to make the money work. And every draft pick the Lakers have for the next couple years. I mean, the Thunder have a fire sale coming up, right? They have Chris Paul, who's a trade candidate. They've got Steven Adams, who's a trade candidate. They got Dennis Schroeder, who's a trade candidate. And they have Danilo Gallinari and Nerlens Noel both as free agents. So maybe they are willing to part with him for a little bit less, but not as little as the Los Angeles Lakers are making, or as they have to offer. So I don't think they're going to have a way to pull it off, but I appreciate the ambition. Let's go to Skirmish 1 again with this question. Whoa, James Harden to the Raptors. Okay, so if you're the Raptors, let's think. You got to give up at least OG Anunoby. You got to give up probably Kyle Lowry to make the money work. And then you got to give up every draft pick you have. In all honesty, for what the Rockets would probably ask of that, I think the Raptors would be this team to say no. I think the Raptors are going to commit to going young by re-signing Fred VanVleet and going with OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam over a guy like James Harden. So, ain't going to happen, but the Raptors might have the pieces to pull it off with Siakam and Anunoby. Let's go to Al Mack, or AI Mack, not sure which letter that is. Mitchell Robinson and the 8th pick for the Golden State Warriors' 2nd pick. I think the Warriors say yes in this deal. This gets them a true rim protector. They move down to 8, still take a solid player, or they can package 8 and Wiggins for something good as well. Maybe the Knicks say yes, but the only reason the Knicks would say yes in this scenario is because they feel like they can sign a free agent center that can play that big man position. I think Knicks fans like Mitchell Robinson a little bit too much and like him and like what they can get at 8 to be able to give that up. But at 2, you're guaranteeing yourself a chance at LaMelo Ball. So I think the Knicks probably say no, but they would have to at least think about it. Sports Fan All Day says, where will Malik Beasley go in free agency? Wow, we get a Malik Beasley question on the channel. I like Malik Beasley a lot. He's a restricted free agent for the Timberwolves. I think he is an underrated athlete and shooter. I think he'll probably stay with Minnesota and he'll be a part of their rebuild. But I think there's going to be a lot of teams calling him. Some team that's probably willing to overpay. I think a team like the Lakers would love to get Beasley on their team, but I don't know if they're going to have the money to actually pull that one off. Let's go to Jello Smooth again. What prospects do you think will get drastically overrated? You ready? James Wiseman. First of all, I do like Wiseman. I don't want to completely hate and bash on him as Hater Jimmy does oh so often, but he's not worth the number 2 overall pick. If you want a big man in this draft, you take Onyeka Okongwu out of USC. You think Bam Adebayo is good? That is what Onyeka Okongwu can become. If you like, a poor man's version of Embiid, yes, that's what James Wiseman can be. So I think he will be a guy that is definitely overrated. I think another guy that could be overrated is Aaron Nesmith out of Vanderbilt if you're looking more in that mid to late first round range because he's not very good defensively and he has a lot of injury problems. So I'll say Nesmith and James Wiseman. Let's go to Johnny Goodman. Says if Giannis can asks for a trade, which team will he go to? So if you're talking about a player that is actually going to get traded, like a big name guy, you got to think about the teams that have big names to offer. Like the Miami Heat could offer a Tyler Hero, a Duncan Robinson, and a Bam Adebayo, right? That's the kind of team that could make some sense because they have the pieces. Same with the Toronto Raptors with guys like OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam. So you look at both of those teams, they could definitely make some sense to actually pull off a trade. So that'd be my thing. I'd say Miami and I'd say Toronto. But I also don't think that Giannis Antetokounmpo is going anywhere this offseason. Let's go back to Boykin. Says, do you think James Harden would be a good fit to the Heat if they don't sign Dragic this offseason? Well, of course. Of course he would be. But how are you going to make that happen? You got to trade for him, right? If you're going to trade for him, you got to give up probably Tyler Hero or, again, Bam Adebayo. And at that point, is it worth it? No, probably not. You have Jimmy Butler at the 2. Why not stick with him at the 2? And Dragic is probably going to re-sign, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. Let's go to Uncle Drew. How realistic is a deal between the Raptors and the Warriors centered around a number 2 pick? I don't think it's super realistic because I don't think that number 2 pick is worth something like OG Anunoby, which is probably what you'd have to give up to get that number 2 pick. Now, maybe the Raptors could get Andrew Wiggins, and all of a sudden you get homeboy of Canada back in Canada playing for the Toronto Raptors with Wiggins. Is it realistic? Probably more so than other teams, but I don't think it's super realistic because I'm not sure how high the Raptors are on that number 2 overall pick, although they do want LaMelo Ball, according to multiple reports. Johnny Goodman gets the last question up of the day. Embiid, Jokic, or Karl-Anthony Towns, which big man, will you take to build around? So let's break it all down, right? Embiid, if you're going for defense, that's what you want. Karl-Anthony Towns, if you're looking for the stretch 5 guy that pulls in a lot of rebounds, that's what you want. If you want the playmaking point guard center that can also stretch the floor and that also rebounds the ball well, and you want your centerpiece to win you games, you go with Nikola Jokic every single time. This is how I would rank those. Number 1, Nikola Jokic. Number 2, Joel Embiid. Number 3, Karl-Anthony Towns, until they begin to prove that they can win on their respective teams like Nikola Jokic already has. So I lied. We've got one more question in because we got a last-second super chat from one of my loyal watchers over on All Things Mavs. Jamie Spatskanov says, would it make sense would Turner work as the 3rd star in Dallas, and what would it take? Miles Turner, of course, of the Indiana Pacers. I do think it would make a lot of sense because he's a stretch 5 that can protect the rim alongside Porzingis. Problem is, I don't think the Mavs have what it takes to get him. You have to give up probably the 18th pick, the 31st pick in the 2nd round, probably a guy like a Jalen Brunson, and maybe even a guy like Justin Jackson, Tim Hardaway Jr. to really make that work. So does it make sense? Yes, I would love him in Dallas. Will it actually work? Probably not. And if you're a Mavs fan, make sure you go and subscribe to our All Things Mavs channel at youtube.com/allthingsmavs.